Hello and welcome to the Convotherm presentation. My name is Ron Sternig. I am the product manager for Convotherm.
Hey there, my name is Jeff Scott. I'm the corporate chef for Welbilt here in Canada. Today we're doing a live cooking and equipment demonstration for Combi.
So before we start into the equipment, I'd like to give you a little bit of a background on Convotherm. Convotherm is one of the largest manufacturers of combi ovens worldwide. As a matter of fact, we have the largest selection of combi ovens worldwide. And what I mean by selection of combi ovens worldwide, from the smallest little mini, we'll show you that in a minute, to larger combi ovens, to full-size roll-in combi ovens. Every single model is available with a boiler and without a boiler, available in gas and electric. We're going to get into some of the advantages, disadvantages of boiler and boilerless. Convotherm is a German manufacturer. They've been manufacturing combi ovens for about 50 years now, and as I said, one of the largest manufacturers worldwide. We are distributing the Convotherm ovens here in Canada by Garland. Well, let's get into some of the features and benefits on this oven already.
Sure.
First of all, what I want to do is I want to get rid of some of the features on the oven so that Jeff can start cooking. So what I'm going to show you here are a couple features. First of all, right now the oven is in steam mode, so it's cooking away or steaming away. I'm going to press the stop button here, and I'm going to show you one feature that we have, which is a two-stage door handle. So when I open it to stage one, you'll see all the steam that's coming out here. That's a safety feature. Most competitors have it so that the door kind of almost pops open at you. They don't have a two-stage door handle. But you can see now this steam coming out. The idea is to release some of the steam, or at least let the customer know that there's a lot of steam in there. They should be wary as they open the door. The second feature that we have is the door is a disappearing door. In other words, I slide this door off to the side and it disappears. The advantage there is that naturally it frees up aisle space, so if I wanted to take a pan out of here and bring it over here, I don't have to walk myself around the door to get to the other side. So in tight aisle spaces, it's a huge, huge benefit. That, by the way, is an option. So if you like that feature, you have to ask for it or order that option and we'll build it for you with it. Otherwise, it would just come as a right-hand door swing. Now, the other good thing about that is the glass. The glass is hot, so when I pull pans out, I won't burn my elbow as I'm pulling pans out because the door is not there. Now I'm pulling pans out, I don't have to worry about burning my elbow. So it's a safety feature and also an ergonomic feature so that I have free aisle space. The door is a slam door. I just slam it shut, closed. But as I said, two-stage door handle and disappearing door is a great feature. Next, what I want to show you is a feature that we call crisp and tasty. What I'm going to do is I'm going to put it back into steam mode. You saw how much steam was coming out of there a moment ago. I'm going to put it into steam mode, and in a minute or less than a minute, you'll see that the steam will fog up the glass, and you're going to see that steam. Actually, when I say see steam, you see condensation. Steam is a dry, invisible gas. You actually don't see steam. But you're going to see the condensation form on the glass in a minute. And I'm trying to get this into a full head of steam like I did a minute ago. And now I want to show you, after that, once it's in a full head of steam, I'm going to show you a feature called Crisp and Tasty. Crisp and Tasty is a way that we remove all the moisture out of our compartment very, very quickly. Every manufacturer has a way of removing the moisture. Most of them just have a vent on the top, and the vent opens up, and what's supposed to happen is natural heat rising allows the steam to go up and out and escape. You don't get all the steam or moisture removed. Some of it does, but not all of it. With the way we do it, all of the moisture is removed. First of all, I want to point out that Convotherm have a closed drain system. And what that means is that in the bottom of the oven, every combi oven has a drain. And that drain on all the other manufacturers is open to the atmosphere. So you have a 2-inch hole that goes open and down an open funnel drain. And if you watch, you'll see steam always going down there and cold water to condense that steam. You're not allowed to send live steam down the drain. So they're always sending this cold water running down the drain. Our system is closed. So the drain, the bottom of our oven, has something very similar to a P-trap in a sink. It's a water barrier. So the water barrier stops steam from going down the drain. So what happens is the steam builds up in the compartment and it tries to go down the drain but can only go as far as the water barrier and stops. So you don't send live steam down the drain, and therefore I don't have to send cooling water down the drain. Because of that, it makes our ovens much more efficient and uses a ton less water because I'm not always cooling steam going down the drain. Now, back to crisp and tasty. When we want to remove the moisture out of the compartment, since we don't have an open drain and we don't have any other vents that are open at the moment, they're all closed, what we do is we open the vent at the top of the oven and we will drain the water out of the drain box. Now it's an open system. The vent is located over the fan wheel, and the fan wheel spinning creates a pull effect and pulls air into the compartment, and then it goes down into the drain and out the vent at the back. So if I go here, I'm going to stop this. You can see how much steam is in the compartment. I'm going to switch this to hot air. I'm going to set the temperature for 212 degrees. So I'm showing you that I'm not evaporating the steam, I'm evacuating the steam. I'm going to put the time on for 2 minutes. Check. And here's crisp and tasty, C&T. I'm going to set it, I have 5 different levels I can choose. I'm going to choose the highest level. And now I'm going to hit the start button. It says preheating is done, put the food in, well I'm going to skip that, and now I'm going into crisp and tasty. You might not hear it. Right now I can hear that the water is being pumped out of the drain box. It takes about 10-15 seconds for the water to completely be eliminated out of the drain box, and then you're going to hear a click, and you're going to hear the vent open up. There's the vent opening up. Now, take a look at the back here if you don't mind there. You can see it there. You can see how much steam is coming out of the vent at the back, like a chimney effect. So that crisp and tasty is pulling the fresh air in and sucking the moisture out of the vent at the back. You can take a look at the glass. I'm not sure if you can see this glass or not, but right now this glass is completely clear of all the steam that was in the compartment. Crisp and tasty, I can tell by the timer, crisp and tasty has only been operating for about 40 seconds right now. So I'm going to give it a full minute to evacuate all the steam. And what I want to point out is this is the worst case scenario, that you are in a steam mode and then evacuating all the steam out of the compartment. Typically what you usually do is you go from a Combi Mode and then maybe want to crispen up or brown off the product and then take out all the moisture. So I'm going to push stop here. This has now been on for 1 minute exactly, and you can see when I open the door, there's no big woof of steam coming out of the compartment. All of the moisture that was in that compartment, all that steam is completely evacuated in less than 1 minute. I don't think there's another brand or manufacturer that can state that they can remove all of the moisture out of a compartment in less than 1 minute, because we do it in a very mechanical way as compared to simply opening a vent and trying to let steam out. So that is a huge feature, mainly because if you are trying to brown off a product, if you're trying to crispen up a product, that's where crisp and tasty comes into play. I'm going to give you a quick example about, and I'm trying not to steal too much thunder from our chef, but a quick example would be, if you go to a supermarket, you'll see that many of them cook chicken in a combi oven. And they'll cook that chicken in Combi Mode. They want to have hot air and steam in the combi at the same time. Why? By adding moisture or adding steam, you don't draw the moisture out of the product or out of the bird. The only problem is that by adding moisture or steam into the compartment, you might not get the same browning as you might in a hot air environment. So what you can do is you can cook in Combi Mode first, in the first maybe 35-40 minutes of a whole bird, and then automatically switch over to crisp and tasty for another maybe 5 minutes. Really draw out all the moisture out of the oven and crispen up the skin, brown off that skin without degrading the interior of the bird, because you're not in a hot or dry environment long enough for you to do that, just long enough for you to crispen up that skin. So in saying all that, I've now kind of gone through a couple of the features that allows me to now turn this oven over to Jeff. He can do a little bit of cooking, and we're going to get into some of the other features a little bit later.
Okay, so we're going to start by reviewing the touchscreen. This is important because it's going to be where you do all your programming and basically how you use the oven day to day. So I'm going to get our camera guy here to bring the camera in nice and close so I can show you the high-level view of the touchscreen. So we already saw a couple of things as Ron was doing the demo. Okay, so I'm going to start from home. Okay, so you notice 4 large icons on the main home screen. It's fairly simple. Most operators can come without having any experience in combi ovens and understand at least the concept of what the home screen does and how to start cooking. So of the 4 icons, you have your chef's hat, which is where you do all of your day-to-day cooking, manual programming, that sort of thing. Our press and go, there's 2 options here. It's either an automatic tray timing system or it's an access to your quick favorites, depending on what kind of operation you have. Your cookbook is where all your recipes live. So every time you program a recipe, it's going to be saved in our cookbook. I'll get into that in a second. And our 4th icon here is for retherm. Retherming is for plated retherm, bulk retherm, depending on your operation, mainly for banqueting, weddings, that sort of thing. Let's look at the chef's hat. If I start at the top, I've got 4 icons. And this is how to kind of think about using this touchscreen, top down, left to right. So if I go on this top left, it's a cloud. That means steaming. This is our steam mode. Here we have Combi Mode, which is cloud and dry air rising. So that kind of indicates that it's both steaming and dry air at the same time. And we'll get into combi cooking in a little minute. The 3rd icon is our dry cooking. So this is like an advanced convection oven. Lastly, this oven has an option of a smoker. So I've got my smoker controls here, and I can program that either solo or into a recipe. From top down, I'm going to start back on steaming. My first icon is my temperature. So if I want to do low temperature steaming, I can steam at 100 degrees, 120 degrees, check. I can go higher than that, more into a combi mode. But generally, we're going to steam at 212, which is the boiling temperature of water. If I want to see the actual temperature inside the oven, I can just slightly touch it. So it tells me it's 207 degrees inside the oven right now, and I've got the temperature set for 212 when I press start. Over here is our clock. This is where you set your cook time, anywhere from hours and minutes, okay? And I can even get dialed into seconds if I like, 130 seconds. If I want to operate this oven all day long, like a steamer in a busy restaurant, I would just use the infinity button. You notice my timing is gone, so it's really going to steam all day until I physically have to stop the oven. This is your fan speed control. Levels 1 to 5. There is even a little bit of airflow required at level 1, so it's not a completely still oven. And the default is level 4. This is a great place to start. Plus sign is additional features, and we'll get into that in a minute. Combi is the addition of steam into a hotter air environment. So in combi mode, you're going to be cooking at higher temperatures. You see a little bit more going on here, HP Auto. We'll talk about that in combi mode. Dry air is the absence of steam, so you want to remove steam from the oven. And that's where crisp and tasty comes in that you see with the pumps. Okay, back to the home screen. The cookbook. 3 tabs in the cookbook, okay? First one is your favorites. So if I have recipes I use day in and day out, I'd like to want to save them here in the favorites menu. Recipe categories. I can have breakfast, lunch, dinner, desserts, main, entrees, proteins, whichever way you want to look at developing your menu. And on the end is all of our recipes. So hundreds of recipes live in this oven, searchable through our search bar. Okay. So really simple. Technology you'd be used to seeing if you're familiar with using a smartphone. And lastly, retherm. We're not going to touch on that today. It's more for very specific customers. So Instead of going into the chef set to steam my steam products, we're going to start the food part of the demo in our press and go, because I want to show you the automatic tray time. So I press the press and go, and in this instance, all of our recipes show up. Okay? Now I know today I've got green beans and I've got portions of salmon. So I've seen my green beans right here, so all I do is I click green beans. So what the press and go does is it gives you a list of all the tray slots available, so all these are free. It gives me a countdown timer. So I'm going to choose slot 3 for my tray of beans. Okay? Now it's telling me to insert them. So this is a crew mode meant for high-speed operations. Not a lot of thinking involved, so you can just come in, press your tray, and the oven knows how to adjust the temperatures automatically. I can also put more products in at the same time if I'd like. So if I've got 3 or 4 trays of beans, I can fill the whole oven up with the same amount. Okay? Or I can choose another product. Now this is a smart feature. I press the plus sign. Now you'll notice there's far less recipes. So it's not going to let me roast beef at the same time I'm steaming my beans. So I've got my salmon down here. I can click my salmon. Again, choose multiple trays or one if you like. I'm going to put my salmon underneath my beans because I don't want it to drip on my vegetables. And now I just need to simply open up the door. So here I go, my 2-stage door. Once to the right, once to the left. I'm going to slide it right out of the way. And I've got my food already prepared over here. So raw salmon and my beans. I can choose my trays. It doesn't have to be perfect. But in an ideal situation, you choose the proper trays. And the slam feature on the door, I can just slam that shut. So now it's indicating I've got on level 3, my beans are ready. They're going to be done first, so it's counting down, and underneath that is my poached salmon. You'll notice more recipes are available here, so I can continue to cook. Like I said, it's a crew mode, so I can keep steaming while I'm in steaming mode. It's only until all the steaming is stopped that I can switch back to all my recipes and maybe choose a different style, like dry air or smoke. So while that's cooking, I'm going to throw back to Ron, because we want to talk about boiler and boilerless options for your combi ovens, and why you would choose one of the other.
Actually, now that we have the camera the way it is right now, you can see behind me the different sizes of ovens here. This is the mini combi oven, the very small, compact combi oven, and then this one here would be one of our larger ovens, full-size sheet pans fit into this oven, and then here is probably the next size up from the mini, or it is the next size up from the mini, half-size sheet pans, 6 pans, 6 trays. Now we're going to talk about boiler and boilerless, some of the advantages and disadvantages. When it comes to steaming, that's where the boiler and boilerless comes into play. What I mean by that is the advantage to a boiler is that it will do a better job low temperature steaming. In other words, if I wanted to do something like a creme brulee or a custard where you want to steam at lower temperatures than 212, let's say 180 degrees, a boiler style steamer will maintain more accurate lower temperature steaming. So in other words, if I wanted 180 degrees Fahrenheit, a boiler will keep it right at 180 degrees Fahrenheit. A boilerless combi oven, the way it manufactures steam is it dribbles water onto the fan. The fan throws that water onto the hot elements or the heat exchangers and vaporizes that water. The reason that it isn't quite as accurate in temperature is that the heat exchangers are inside the oven, or the elements are inside the oven, and they give off a little bit of residual heat once the temperature has been reached. With the boiler, once the temperature has been reached, the boiler stops boiling immediately and your temperature is very accurate. So in other words, let's say I want to do creme brulee. I set my boiler or my temperature for 180 degrees, and with a boiler, I'll reach 180 or maybe 181. With a boilerless, I might be 185 or maybe even 190. The temperature will be a little bit hotter or lower than the actual temperature that I want to reach. Now, when it comes to steaming beans or broccoli or rice or cauliflower or potatoes or whatever, they don't care if it's 190 or 200 or 212 or whatever. It's indifferent to them. So with most products, a boilerless combi oven would be perfectly fine in steaming for the most products. So With low temperature steaming, you might be talking about something like a custard, or you might be talking something like sous vide cooking. If you're doing any of those two items, I would suggest boiler. If you're doing just typical general steaming of veg or whatever, I would probably say boilerless is perfectly fine. Now that's the advantage to boiler. Here's the advantage to boilerless. It doesn't have a boiler, and therefore it doesn't have a fill valve, a drain valve, a water level control, extra contactors, extra elements, extra high limit. All those components don't exist in a boilerless version that exists in a boiler. I'll get right back into it as Jeff gets into the steaming here.
All right, come on everybody, sorry to interrupt you, Ron, food's got to come out. So, back to the touchscreen here. You'll notice it's beeping green, the beans are ready to be removed, and I still have some time to cook on my poached salmon. All right, so I'm gonna get this door right out of the way. Grab my beans, nice and hot. You can see how hot these beans are. So I'm going to throw them in my bowl and get them seasoned and ready to serve. One thing you notice, or you may not have seen because it's kind of built into the algorithm of the press and go, is that the oven can automatically adjust the time inside the oven depending on the amount of product you're cooking. And that's really important. So if I'm cooking 6 or 7 trays of beans versus 1/2 tray of beans, the oven's going to perform a little differently because it knows that the temperature is going to drop the more cold product that I put in the oven. So it knows it has to add more time if I've got more product in there. And that's an intelligent part of the press and go, as well as it will pause the cook time on my products when I have the door open because it knows that there's going to be loss of temperature there. So when I have the door closed again, it's going to continue to cook back in its original cooking temperature. And lastly, you can see I've got 30 seconds left on my poached salmon. Again, all I can do here is choose my steamed items until the salmon's cooked, and then I can start cooking in different cooking modes like smoking, dry roasting. All right, so lastly, you want to see here, my salmon's ready to go, so I'm going to pop this open. Make sure I don't get a face full of steam. Get my door out of the way. And here, I've got perfectly cooked portions of salmon that I'm going to plate up. So, nothing too fancy, but I just want to kind of show you some options. If this was a high volume restaurant looking to do something like steamed beans and salmon, which is kind of a common dish, I can just have this nice and ready to go. Plate it up maybe with some sort of baby potatoes or starch and a hollandaise. And now I've got a nice, really clean, fresh dish ready to serve. Beautiful. Right. So you can see the doneness of this is just medium. So for a fine dining restaurant, this is perfect. If you're long-term care or you prefer more well-done salmon, you're going to add maybe 30 seconds to a minute. And you can actually have 3 or 4 different recipes for cooking your salmon, depending on the amount of oil you want to serve. Same with your steaks. If you want to program steaks in the same sort of setting, you may have a medium rare steak and then a well-done steak in different cook times. So Ron's going to finish up his talk, and we'll get into Combi Mode.
So we're going to just finish off on that boilerless. Again, the advantage to boilerless would be that it doesn't have a boiler. So all those components that I was talking about don't exist in the boilerless combi oven. So if they don't exist, what does that mean? That means less service over time. In other words, if I sold a combi oven to one customer with a boiler, and I sold another customer a boilerless combi oven of the same size, same style, over time, if I visited that one customer with the boiler and that customer without the boiler, keep in mind, combi ovens are going to last 10 or 15 years. I would say chances are the customer with the boiler has had more service over the 10 or 15 years as compared to the boilerless combi oven, because there's a lot more components that exist. So just one component or 2 components over 10 years might not, but might give them some trouble and therefore have to be serviced. So in general, the boilerless combi ovens would require a little less service, a little less headaches than the boiler style. Additionally, you'll never actually have to worry about descaling or cleaning out a boiler with the boilerless, because again, it doesn't exist. And what'll happen is some scale might form on the walls or the window or the sides of the oven over the day, but at the end of the day, the automatic wash will wash all that scale that might have formed throughout the day on inside the oven and wash that down the drain. The next morning I come in with not just a clean oven as far as dirtiness, but also if any scale formed through the day, that scale would be washed down the drain as well. So it's really maintenance free. So that's probably the big advantage of Boilerless is less maintenance, less service over time compared to the boiler. With all honesty, I sell a lot more Boilerless combi ovens than I do boiler, and that's the customer's choice. We give them advantages, disadvantages. They, for the most part, probably aren't doing the sous vide cooking or that low temperature steaming, so they decide to go to the Boilerless. But we have both available to offer the customer, and so whichever the customer prefers, that's what they can have. So I'm going to go back to Jeff now. We're pretty much done with the Boilerless advantages, disadvantages. And I think we're going to start talking a little bit more about combi oven and combi oven cooking.
Yep, we're going to get into combi cooking. Let me show you how I'm going to preheat into combi mode. So, Jeff's hat, and I press the combi cooking button. Like we talked about, combi cooking is the addition of steam into hot air. We'll talk about how that works and why these ovens were built in general. And I'm going to cook at 365. Okay. I'm going to eliminate that 110. I don't want to cook for that long. I just want to cook in my own time. So I'm going to use infinity time, and I'll show you the manual tray timer here. Press start. Notice I got some preheating. Okay, so my oven is preheated to 365. If you can see the screen, it's got the red circle, meaning it's continuously cooking. I forgot to mention the red circle, the yellow circle, and the green circle. So these are visual cues to remind the operator that the oven is in a specific cooking mode. So if I was across the kitchen 20, 30 feet away, I may not be able to see the little time countdown here. But this timer bar will count down in its color, red while it's cooking, to tell me how far away it is to finish the cooking cycle. If it was yellow, it would be telling me it's almost ready to preheat. If it was green, it means put the product out, but the oven's preheated, ready to go. Okay? So now I've got my oven preheated to 365. If I notice here, same time, so I've got continuous time, but instead of the automatic tray timer, I'm going to be using the manual timer. The manual timer is a really useful chef's tool. I use it all the time when I'm cooking in this oven. Great for bulk cooking, great for high volume restaurants, because you can have your back turned and always have a constant reminder whenever you think your product's going to be ready to pull out. Just like a convection oven will have maybe 1 or 2 timers on the side of the oven, this gives you a timer for all the trays. So I can have 3 or 4 products in here cooking at the same time, and I don't have to forget about them as I'm busy doing my prep. So today I've only got 2 products I'm going to be cooking. I've got a small portion of baked pasta. I'm showing this for a specific reason. I want to cook this as quickly as possible, and it's a really dense product. So combi cooking is an ideal cooking mode for something like a dense baked pasta like lasagna. And I've got the world famous grilled cheese sandwiches, and these are going to cook super quickly. We want to show you how fast and even cooking you can get in combi mode with full steam, but still cook product like a toast. Okay? So, I'm going to open up my door. This is where this door comes in handy. You notice I can see steam when I open up that door for the first stage. It reminds me that there's hot steam in there, so I don't have to burn my eyebrows on. So I open up that, get the disappearing door out of the way, and now I don't have to deal with a door hitting my elbow, like Ron said, in a tight enclosed space. I've got a little oven rack I'm going to slide in here for my pasta. Pretty simple. And I'm going to put that right on my rack. If it drips a little bit, I'm not too concerned because that will be cleaned out by the automatic wash. Slam that shut. So I've cooked these before, so I have a general idea of how long they're going to take to cook. So my sandwich, I'm going to say, is about 5 minutes. And I can kind of see as it's cooking if that's going to be done or not. And the same thing with my baked pasta. It's about 12 minutes. And I can tell by the amount of caramelization on that cheese and the bubbling of the pasta if it's ready or not. So let's come back to the screen. I want to talk about how we deal with combi cooking in Convotherm. I've got 4 or 5 minutes before my sandwiches are ready to come out. It's going to jump back and forth, but I want to show you this specifically. HP Auto. So HP stands for Humidity Pro. and it's how Convotherm manages cooking with steam. So what is Combi Mode in general? Why would you cook with steam at high temperatures? There's a number of reasons. Cooking at high temperatures with steam gives you a couple of different options, and it's really why combi ovens were invented. Combi ovens are called combi ovens because it's a combination of hot air and steam. I've got this beautiful edge-to-edge, side-to-side toasted sandwich, which is surprising, and it's really part of the learning curve in cooking in combi mode. These combi ovens can do a myriad of things, but this is really the importance in how to use combi mode to your advantage. This is one of those items that people always love seeing as comfort food for basically everyone in North America, UK, toasties, toasted sandwiches, grilled cheese sandwiches. We serve these to basically every customer that comes in because they're familiar with the product. They all have an idea of what to expect. And when you see a toasted sandwich come out of an oven that's full of steam, it really starts getting the wheel spinning on how to use this product in combi mode. So while I'm waiting for my pasta to cook, I'm going to get back into combi cooking and why you would cook, and then maybe I'll slice into one of these sandwiches so you can see that's hot on the inside as well. So these pull apart, but want to really see that cheese pull, how nice that is. I see Ron over here drooling. Okay? Beautiful hot inside and out cheese sandwich. So combi cooking, let's talk about that again. So the combination of steam and hot air, why would you do that? Well, steaming cooks faster in hot air. That's just period. You're going to get about 20 to 30% faster cook times using high temperature steam because steam transfers the food product that much more quickly. So when there's hot steam, the energy from the steam adheres or transfers to the food product instantly, whereas if it's just hot air, you're not going to get that immediate transfer of energy. So number one, it's faster. And number two, and this is important, it cooks more evenly. So when you have steam in this hot oven, it eliminates any hot and cold spots, even in an advanced oven like this. So adding a little bit of steam in basically any cook mode will help even out any hot and cold spots. So if I really want to achieve even cooking, even browning, front to back, left to right, top to bottom, then I would use a little bit of steam or full-on combi mode to try to achieve that. So that's why you see these, they're perfect cooking modes for something like baking, where you want to achieve a nice, beautiful browning on a Danish or a croissant. So faster, more even cooking. That's why you would do it. It's fairly simple. So for example, in a practical sense, I would use it to cook a roasted chicken. No problem. I can cook a roasted chicken in this oven, 45 minutes start to finish. By using the cooking probe, using combi mode, I can get the chicken cooked 90% in combi mode because that energy is going to cook more quickly, get right to the bone of the chicken. It's a well done product, so I'm not worried about cooking it to medium or medium rare. So I cook it well done, 90% of the way, and then I'm going to use that crisp and tasty Ron talked about earlier, maybe as a second cooking stage, and I can eliminate all the steam in the oven very aggressively and get the browning and crusting on that chicken that you're looking for. So it will maintain the moisture inside, nice and beautiful, exactly the temperature you want, and on the outside you're going to get a beautiful, even brown skin on a roasted chicken. So it's a perfect chicken if you want to achieve that in a combo thing. So if you come over here, I want to show you the baked pasta I've got in here. You can kind of see it. I'm going to try to focus in a little bit here with the camera guy. Right, so you see how beautiful the brown cheese is getting and the bubbling of the pasta sauce. And that's in a short amount of time, right? I programmed it for a 12-minute cook time. I may not even take that long. I still have 3 minutes left and I'm almost there. So this is a baked pasta. Again, I show this product to just about every customer that comes in because you'll see baked pasta in high-end fine dining and even more so in long-term care, retirement, where people are looking for familiar comfort foods. Who doesn't love lasagna? So typically you'll have a big cold tray of lasagna. You may wrap it in tin foil or aluminum foil, and it may take 1 hour to 2 hours to cook fully inside and out. It's really a pain in the butt to cook to temperature because it takes so long in a convection oven. Maybe the sides will dry out and be crusty and hard to eat, but the inside may be still a little too cold. And that's just living with a convection oven and cooking something like a lasagna. Well, with combi mode, you can eliminate a lot of those steps. You're going to get even browning on all sides. The moisture in the oven will help keep the moisture inside of the baked pasta, so you're not going to get as much drying on the outside, so you can get a higher yield on the product. Your dishwasher's going to be happier. And as well, you're going to be cooking in 20 to 30% less time. So this is a perfect product to show for a customer that wants to understand how to use Combi Mode to their advantage. So my last couple of minutes before this is ready, I'm going to get you to come back over to the screen really quickly and talk about how Convotherm is different from other manufacturers in Combi Mode. That's what this HP Auto is for. HP Auto stands for Humidity Pro in automatic mode. In steam mode, you'll notice there wasn't anything there, no additional features to manage the steam. It's set like a steamer. But if I go back to Combi Mode, I'm going to just go back to my original temperature, I've got this filled in with HP Auto. So HP Auto is an automatic management system for the steam in combi cooking. What the Convotherm does in automatic mode, it's got a bypass that lives down in the drain. It's always monitoring the amount of steam in the oven. So it knows whether it needs to add or just not add any steam at all. So you can imagine if I'm roasting 10 or 12 chickens at a time, they give off a lot of steam as they cook. They're going to add a lot of steam to the oven. So the oven doesn't need to add more steam to the cavity, making it much more energy efficient. As well as if I'm cooking a lot of these toasted sandwiches and I need to add more steam, maybe they're sucking up some and the oven needs to rebalance with more steam, that bypass in automatic mode tells the oven to add more steam while it's cooking. So you're always going to have the perfect amount of steam. In other manufacturers, you have to guess. Every other manufacturer, you have to choose a percentage of steam while you're cooking. And that's really a guessing game for any chef or operator. I don't know if it's 79% steam I need for roasted chicken or if it's 12% steam or anywhere in between. They're always guessing. It generally kind of turns out right because it's a guessing game anyway. The Convotherm has the Humidity Pro that allows that guesswork to be eliminated. So no guesswork anymore. All right. Come over here to the screen here for a second, Lily. It's going to tell me, again, this is automatic, or my manual timer. It's telling me that tray 5 is ready, which is my beautifully brown baked gnocchi. And I can pull this out by the handle. I like these little cast iron pans for this sort of thing because it gets it beautifully brown. And let me zoom in here. Still bubbling away and beautifully cooked and super hot on the inside as well. I know that that's going to be fully cooked, super hot inside. I never have to worry about the product being hot and ready to serve. Alright. And now I'm going to jump into more preheating to get into dry air mode, and we're going to talk a little bit about the smoker as well. I'm going to ask Ron to jump in. We're going to talk about how Convotherm has a built-in smoker and how the smoker operates and how you can use that in place of a standard smoking piece of equipment. Before I do that, sorry, Ron.
That's okay.
I'm going to insert my grill pan. I'm going to grill a steak, so I want to make sure my grill pan is nice and hot. This is an iron grill pan, so it's going to retain a lot of heat, but it does require a little bit of preheating if I'm going to cook something quick, let me see.
Let's take a look at that smoker you were referring to. Okay. Take a look at the back of the oven. You can see an element. You can see that element right at the bottom. And that's where the smoker box will be set onto. So one of the good things about our oven is that the smoker is built into the oven. And the advantage there is I can build a recipe with the smoker included in that recipe. So in other words, I can smoke for an hour, then after that hour is done, the oven can automatically go to the next stage, which would be cooking. I can cook for a period of time, and then maybe a third stage of holding. When I press the start button, I can go home. I can let the oven take over and smoke for the hour, and then automatically cook and automatically hold, while a lot of our competitors, their ovens don't have a built-in smoker. Their ovens are an external smoker. So I plug in a smoker externally, run a wire through the door and into the oven, and then I use that smoker. Now, the way they use it is you turn an on-off switch for the smoker. So if I wanted to smoke for an hour, I turn the on-off switch to the on position, and in an hour, I got to watch my clock, and in an hour, I got to come back and turn it to the off position. So it's not part of the oven, and therefore cannot be part of a recipe. So it's more manual. Now, That's the big advantage to ours being built in. The only disadvantage is, because it's built in, you have to order it with the oven. I can't add it after the fact. As long as you order it with the oven, you'll have the ability to program it as part of a recipe. Got many customers that have chosen Convotherm specifically because they can, their staff, they don't want to wait and watch and look at the clock and such. They can just hit the start button and know that it's going to smoke for exactly 1 hour or whatever, and then they can walk away. That's about the smoker.
So Ron talked about the operations of the smoker. You can program it as a cold smoker or a hot smoker. Either way works. You can program it into a recipe. And a real application of that is something like an overnight brisket. So brisket is a bit of a finicky piece of product to cook. And if you're not precise with the temperature and the amount of moisture in the holding, you're likely going to end up with an overcooked dry brisket, which no one really wants. The benefit of having the recipe built in is that the recipe's already pre-programmed in this oven, so I can come up, put my brisket into the oven the night before, make sure I probe it, and then press the start button, and it can automatically smoke and cook. All right, this is how we do an overnight brisket in the Convotherm. So quickly, I've got my brisket slightly trimmed in a nice hotel pan. We're going to take our overnight probe, make sure it's inserted in the deepest part of the meat. So one of the 4 contact points will measure the lowest temperature. Underneath, I've got the smoke box installed on the bottom. Okay, you notice that element that it just sits on top. Gonna close our disappearing door. And I'll show you how the controls are programmed. I've got it saved in my cookbook, so I click my cookbook. You notice I've got it as a favorite right here. Zoom in there. Beef brisket smoked overnight. I touch my recipe and it automatically loads. You can tell by the name on top. Okay? And the first stage is always showing, so it's going to smoke for 1 hour and 20 minutes. On the bottom, if you want to see all of the steps in the recipe, I click my steps button. And I've got 5 steps in this recipe: a smoke, a cook to my internal probe temperature using Combi Mode. Okay, internal temperature 105. We cool the oven down with crisp and tasty to 155 Fahrenheit, and then we're holding. See, no time selected, low fan, no crisp and tasty, and that last step will hold that meat until I'm ready to open up the door in the morning at 155 Fahrenheit. I press check because I like that recipe. Okay, and last thing I'm going to do is I'm going to time it for later tonight using my additional button, preset start time. I press check, and now I can leave and start that item in 2 hours. Okay, so I just press start, and that item will start at 3:43 p.m. and be holding, ready to go, nice and hot in the morning when I come in, perfectly cooked. All right, coming in the morning, it's time to check our brisket. I notice the red circle is full, meaning it's holding. Right, no counting down time, it means the time is holding at this temperature, 155. And I open this up, slide away my door, and I've got this beautifully cooked brisket ready to go. Oh, steaming up a little bit here. You can see how nice and juicy it is, and we'll cut into that in a minute. I'm gonna go over to this combi oven and I wanna show you the cook and hold. So I cooked this brisket last night. I smoked it like Texas style, a long smoke time. The entire recipe takes 6 or 8 hours, depending on the size of the brisket. And this way it creates a bit of a bark on the outside that you're more familiar with in Southern American style cooking. But it also cooks to that precise temperature, so I know my product's gonna be nice and moist when I bring it out. So it's been holding over here at a low temperature. So I'm gonna bring this out of the oven. So you can see beautiful dark bark on this brisket, perfectly cooked, okay? And I'm gonna slice into it here. So you see how nice and soft this brisket still is. I'm gonna cut into the center portion. So if I cut in through here, all right, remove that. Still nice and warm, but beautifully moist. See how moist that brisket is? Just dripping outside. And I'm gonna do a nice showpiece here on my final cut. Zoom in a little bit. Beautiful, moist brisket. You can just see how perfectly cooked that is. So Convotherm is also a multifunctional cooking tool and ideal for a modern kitchen. Modern being fine dining to long-term care and everywhere in between. Because you can dial in with precision how you want to cook your product. And you can simplify it to be the touch of a button afterwards. We already talked about steaming, Combi Mode, and hot air, and how great Convotherm is at managing those 3 cooking modes. But I didn't mention proofing. If I want to do low temperature steaming, I can come in the morning and proof buns or bread first thing in the morning when the oven's still a little cool, 90 degrees Fahrenheit or so, in a perfect proofer. I can do low temperature steaming or sous vide style cooking. So if I want to cook in a bag or out of a bag for maybe fish, I can do that with a sous vide probe option. So the probe is a little more delicate, designed to puncture something like fish or a sous vide bag. I can cook steam mode like we talked about, above steam mode temperature, so combi mode temperature, so combi cooking. In dry air mode, I can dial that temperature way down and make a super dry oven to have the best dehydrator you'll ever own. We have a smoker that's built in to the oven, so it's not an external device, so you can actually program recipes into the oven in a recipe profile using that smoker. I can do overnight cooking, so cook and hold, so I can cook all night, so use that dead time at night, which is ideal for building stocks and sauces. You can dehydrate overnight, you can do low temperature cooking overnight, you can do full roasts overnight to a precise degree, so you can get a super high yield on a roast. That's all doable in the Convotherm. I'm still in dry air mode. I want to start cooking my steak. My grill rack with the cross hatches is nice and hot. So I've got my steak ready to go on my drying rack. Get into my hot oven. And now I don't have to worry about turning this at all if I want to get perfect crosshatch, because the grill racks come with that crosshatch built in. So I just press it down to make sure the surface area is coming in contact with the grill. Slam that shut, and now I don't have to worry about it. I am going to flip it because I like getting more of an even cook on both sides, but that's not necessary, especially for banqueting. You can just leave them in there, cook on one side. So I'm going to flip that in 3 minutes and 30 seconds on my manual timer, and we'll see how it turns out when I take it out.
I would actually like to talk a little bit more about the brisket and one particular chain account. I won't mention names, but one particular chain of restaurants decided that they might want to go with Convotherm. And what they did was they tested our oven for an entire year. And what their main product coming out of the oven was brisket and ribs. They tested that oven for, like I said, 1 year, and during that entire year, they did not have one customer complaint about brisket or ribs. They said that not during the entire year, not one customer complained and said that the brisket or the ribs were too dry or anything like that, which meant that they had way less complimentary beverages and desserts and things that they had to give away for a customer that was dissatisfied. They told me that that was unprecedented in their restaurant business. So from there, they decided to go with Convotherm for 2 reasons. The smoker was one, and then the quality of that product coming out of it, so that their quality of their food products are so much better. The entire chain has gone with Convotherm, and just sort of a success story that I wanted to share with you.
All right, so my steak has been flipped, it's cooked. So I'm gonna pull this steak out now. My door out of the way. You can see just how beautifully cooked this steak is. Beautiful grill marks. That crisp and taste even helps render all this fat, getting it nice and crispy and tasty. So I'm gonna let this steak rest, probably about 5 or 10 minutes, and then we'll cut into it. All right, so my steak's ready to cut into. You can see beautiful cross hatches on the top and bottom here, just like you'd see on a standard char broiler. Nice and rested, so I can just start cutting into this if I'm doing something more formal, or I can serve it right as it's ready to go. So beautifully cooked, just at your medium rare level. Ready to serve.
Okay, now we're going to talk about the automatic wash system. Now, the automatic wash system in our oven is unique. And when I say unique is most of our other manufacturers, they use a puck, like a hockey puck kind of idea. And the idea there is, first of all, you're supposed to get your gloves on because you're dealing with caustic material. Get the gloves on. You're actually supposed to even get the goggles on. But anyway, at least minimally get the gloves on because you're dealing with this caustic material. You tear open a pouch, you know, crumbs and such could fall out of that pouch. But anyway, what then you do is you take that caustic soap material and you put it inside the oven. You press start and away you go. Now, the downside about that is that at the end of the cooking process, it is the operator's responsibility to open up the oven and look inside to make sure all of that puck has been dissolved. It can happen that the operator forgets to do that. Some of the puck remains inside the oven, and the next day they start into the cooking process with some of the puck still sitting in the oven, with some of that caustic material still being in the oven. That's why Convotherm uses a liquid detergent. If I look down here, I can see the two jugs of liquid. One is a cleaning detergent and one is a rinse detergent or a rinse aid. The idea there is that I don't have to touch any chemicals. Also, the idea is that after the cleaning process is done, I don't have to worry about any residual liquid chemical being left behind because the oven proves that it's gone through a rinse. If the oven goes through a rinse, you can't possibly have any liquid detergent left behind. However, if it doesn't go through a rinse, let's say somebody turned the water supply off or something like that, if it doesn't go through a rinse, it will not let you cook the next day. It will not let you cook until it goes through a rinse. But once it's gone through a rinse, away you go, you can cook without any concerns that there's liquid left behind. Now, the other good thing about it is that I don't have to touch any chemicals. Once every 2, 3, 4 weeks, I'll exchange a jug, but prior to that, I don't have to put any gloves on or anything like that. All I do is I'll walk up to the oven and I'll show you how to go into an automatic wash. I simply push the little soap bubble at the bottom corner here, push the little soap bubble, and from there, I can select how much detergent do I want to add. So if the oven's not very dirty, I can select a lower level of how much detergent. And then the next thing is I'll select how fast do I want the wash to take place. Express clean means the fastest. Regular clean is the next. And then there's eco. Eco means economical. It will take the longest amount of time, but you'll use the least amount of soap, the least amount of energy, and so forth. So I can choose which speed I want. The next thing, I've got two other functions at the bottom here, steam disinfection or drying. So if I want to have the oven dried out at the end of the cleaning process, I can select drying. Next thing you know, all I do is I hit the start button. It will say remove food and close the door. Really, it's just making you check to make sure that there's nothing inside there. I close the door up, and now it goes into the automatic wash. In this particular case, it's level 2 amount of soap and regular speed, so 1 hour and 20 minutes to do a cleaning. Now the good thing here is I do this at the end of the day. I go home now, and the oven will do an automatic wash, and at the end of the washing period, it'll shut itself off. Other than the control panel will stay on, but the oven itself will be in an off position. So the next morning when I come in, I just come in and I start using a perfectly clean oven. The oven has been cleaning for about 13, 14 minutes right now. I just wanted to show you what it looks like after it starts dispensing the soap into the oven. You can see all the soap bubbles and so forth going on inside there, being dispersed throughout the oven. And all that is all automatic. At the end of this, the oven will rinse all that soap out automatically. I don't have to worry about, don't have to worry about putting gloves on or anything like that. And I don't have to worry about any chemicals being resided in the oven afterwards. It's all going to be rinsed out automatically.
All right, everyone. Just want to thank you for attending our pre-recorded Convotherm demo. Typically we do quite a bit more food and it's a little more interactive with our customers, but this gives you an idea of all the operations in a step-by-step kind of walkthrough of the Convotherm units. Yeah, I'm going to throw it to Ron if he has anything to say.
Well, I want to thank you for watching, and if you want to get more information about Convotherm, we have sales reps across the country that would be able to help you out, and we also have demo locations throughout the country if you actually require a live presentation or a live demo. Anyway, thank you very much for attending, and we hopefully will hear from you and that you end up purchasing a Convotherm oven.
Yep. And please remember to follow us on all of our social media channels. So our Instagram is Welbilt Canada, our Twitter, and our Facebook channels, and as well as our Welbilt YouTube channel.